Some things in the Bible seem really unbelievable.
I believe there might be a God, but I'm just not sure I need him in my life.
How am I supposed to believe in a God if I can't see or feel?
Why did God put them in my life if he knew they were going to betray me in such a bad way?
Why would God allow us to have
Does
free
God
will,
really have
especially
the
when
power
we
to
do
heal?
all the bad that would come of it?
How can I feel the peace of God when my mom
I
is
believe
dying
there
of
might be a
cancer?
God, but I'm just not sure.
Why
I need
did
him in
God
my
Why
even
did
life.
God
create
put
us?
them in my
Are
life
we
if
just
he knew
pawns
they
in
were
his
going
big
to betray
game?
me in such a bad way?
Where is God when I lost
If God
my
is in
job?
What
control
really
of
happens
everything,
after
why did God
I die?
allow
How
my
could
Some
family
things
to
in the
go
Bible
through
seem
that?
really
I prayed and
unbelievable.
prayed.
Is
I don't
God
really
believe
understand
God
the
is
need
supposed
for
to work?
prayer.
Does
Does
God
God
really
really
have
But
the power
I'm
to
just
heal?
not sure I need him in
If
my
God is
life.
in control of everything, why did God allow?
So in our house, we play a couple different games with our kids. My kids aren't smart enough to know that it's hide and seek. And so the game that we call it in our house, we play Come Get Me, which I didn't understand exactly what it was at first. It's like, no, not right away. Like, I go hide, and then you come get me. I was like, oh, so that's where the name came from. And it's interesting how it's changed over the years. My kids are now, they're 4, almost 3, and then baby's almost 1. She doesn't play, okay? And when we first started, when they were like 2 and just a little over 1, it was so easy. Like, it was laughably easy. And that's not insulting my children. That's just how it was. And so we go through, it was like, hey, come get me. And for them at that age, it was just kind of like, if I can't see you, then you can't see me. And so we'd have like the fantastic hiding spots of like, I'll put my head under the bed and my whole body sticking out. And other times it was just, I'm just going to stand against a wall and shut my eyes. And if you can't see me, if I can't see you, then you can't see me. And then as they've gotten older, I'm not going to lie, I know this is kind of an assault on my abilities in this game. It's gotten a lot harder. Like, sometimes I'll go through and I'm just like, I don't know, did they leave? Like, are they still here? And the worst part is they like to play this game when we go shopping, and they think the most fantastic thing in the world is to find those big, like, circular shopping racks and then get right in the middle of them. And so it's like, I just always say, hey, just stay in the shopping rack that I'm in. And sometimes it freaks other people out. They're like, oh, it's like, she's not for sale. I'll take her. But it's fun, and I enjoy it. It's fun playing hide and seek with your kids. And the interesting thing to me, as I've just noticed this small transition throughout the years, is that game and that idea, I think for me, I don't know about you, for you, but for me, it really parallels my relationship with God and how things have gone over the years. That I felt like when I was a kid and when I was younger, that any time I looked for God, I found him. That anytime I reached out or did anything, and like anytime I had questions, I didn't always get my questions answered, but I got confirmation that he was there. And so I can remember specific moments in my life that were like I was struggling, I was down, and I was questioning, and not necessarily, and I'm not going to say it never happened, but the questions weren't necessarily like, does God exist? Because I had kind of settled that a long time ago, but just, is he real? Is he there? Does he care? And I would go into a worship service. I would do something like that, and like a song would be played or something would happen, and I would just unmistakably know that he was right there. And I felt like every single time I reached out, every single time I sought him, every time I seeked, I found him. And then I've noticed something has changed as I've gotten older, and it's almost feels like to me that he's gotten better at hiding. That I'll have moments of struggle, moments of questioning, moments of, again, the question for me has not been for a long time. It hasn't been, does God exist? Because I settled that. But it's, are you there? Do you care? Can you hear me? And sometimes I'll feel in those moments as I ask these questions, whether it's because of new ideas, new conversations, or circumstances in my life that didn't go as I would have expected them to, that confirmation that he's there doesn't come so quickly. Sometimes, if I could be really honest, it doesn't come at all. That I'll be in moments and it's like, God, I need you to do this. And I just feel like I get radio silence. And it never changes. And so just like hide and seek has gotten harder with my kids over the years, I feel like it has gotten harder with God as well. And this is the dialogue that has happened within me. And as I've talked to other people, I realize that this isn't something that's unique to me. It's something that other people have faced as well. Is that when I'm in those moments and it's, hey, where are you? Like, what is going on? And sometimes it's just kind of like, I just want to alert God. Like when I have my kids and like something's going bad or they're not doing what they're supposed to do, I just grab their head and it's like, focus right here. Just focus. Now do this. And I feel like I get in those same moments with God that it's like, do you see? Like, hey, I know you got a whole world, but do you see what's going on right here? Focus. Come on. And it's gotten harder to feel that he's there. It's gotten more difficult as the questions have gotten more difficult to have that calm assurance. And the dialogue that happens within me is, man, something must be wrong with my faith. I must believe something off. I must have thought something off. Maybe he's off. But something, if I'm having this much doubt, if I'm having this much uncertainty, then something has got to be wrong. And this is what I've realized, is that maybe, in those moments of my most intense doubt and uncertainty, maybe God doesn't have me there by accident. Maybe I'm there for a reason. Maybe me asking these really difficult, these really hard questions, maybe my unassurance as to whether or not he even cares is not a sign of his absence, but maybe he has me purposefully there in that moment, struggling, wrestling, fighting for faith. Maybe that's exactly where he wants me. Maybe for you, as you ask hard questions and feel like you don't get any answers, as you struggle with the circumstances in your life in terms of why are they playing out this way instead of this way, maybe as new arguments or thoughts or ideas proving the existence or seeming to prove the non-existence of God, maybe as they came up, maybe those aren't there by accident. Maybe they're by purpose. Maybe they're there by design. And I really believe that God wants to do something incredibly important in that moment. And I want to show you what that is this morning. So if you have your Bibles with you, if you open up to Matthew chapter 15. Matthew chapter 15 is where we're going to start, and we're going to look at verse 21. And the story that we're going to look at this morning is, let me just say it like this, it's troubling. My guess is that there is a good chance, even if you've been in church for your entire life, that you have not heard a message on this story before. Because this is one of those stories that you read in the Bible, or you were like, opened up the Bible one day, it's like, okay, I'm going to trust for God to speak to me, I'm going to start here, kind of play Bible roulette, which usually doesn't work well. And like you kind of start and you're just like, what was that? Like, I had questions, now I have more questions. But I think this is an incredible story of faith. So this is Matthew chapter 15, starting in verse 21. So it says this, it starts off with, leaving that place, Jesus withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon. This is important. What has happened is that place that he was in, Jesus is in Jerusalem. Jerusalem is considered the center of their faith. It's basically like us saying today, like, Jesus left church. Like they viewed the whole city as kind of a religious experience. And so Jesus is at the center of faith, and he goes off to a land, this land of Tyre and Sidon is a place where they viewed, if we just say it like this, that God wasn't. These are the people who don't believe in God. These are the pagans, is how they were usually referred to. And so he is leaving kind of like the hub of faith, and he's going off to a place, to a land with people who don't really believe in God. And so that's where we find this encounter. It says, a Canaanite woman from that vicinity came to him, crying out, Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is demon-possessed and suffering terribly. And so we find out a couple things from this. So he goes to this region where they viewed these don't believe in God, and so God's not there. And he comes across a woman who doesn't believe in God, we would assume. because they don't worship God in this area. But we find out that she has some understanding of God because she says, hey, son of David. And that's what Jesus was. There's King David that happened thousands of years ago. And we knew that the Messiah was going to come from a descendant of King David. And so she's got some understanding of what's going on. And so she comes out to him and she just cries out. He's like, hey, I don't really know what's going on. I don't really know your whole system. I don't know exactly who you are, but I know you're someone. And then she says, I've got a problem and I need you to help. Another translation for have mercy on me is take pity on me. And so literally what's happening is she's going, I've got a problem that I have no idea how to solve. I need your help. Will you do something? Now, let me ask this. From all that you know, and it may be a ton, it may be very, very little, what would you expect Jesus to do? We just say something, right? Like something. And like some of us would say, like maybe he'd heal her in that moment. And there's examples in the Bible. We'll talk about one in a second where he does that. Maybe he'll just ask like an intriguing question or tell a story that seems to have no relation and then tie it back somehow at the end. That would infuriate me if I was with Jesus because I feel like he does that all the time. Like, Jesus, what do you think about this? There once was a farmer who had 4 sons. It's like, no, I asked about the weather. There once was a farmer who had... And so, like, we would expect, like, something to happen there. So she comes out like, God, help me. And then this is his response. Jesus did not answer a word. Jesus did not answer a word. To call it he gave her the silent treatment. And we know this isn't just like one instance. The lady just doesn't go, hey, son of David, have mercy on me. I've got a huge problem. And he doesn't just keep walking and just happen to not hear her, something like that. We see this happens next in the story. This is what's written. It says, so his disciples came to him and urged him, send her away, for she keeps crying out after us. And so this is the picture that you need to get of what's going on in this area. So Jesus and his disciples are going along in an area that they would kind of expect to be unknown. And this lady keeps following them and yelling at Jesus to please do something for her. Could you imagine being the disciples in this moment? She comes at first and they're probably thinking oh man, another person, we're going to have to stop. We're going to have to help. We're going to do something. Look at Jesus. Oh, maybe he didn't hear. She says it again and again. They look at Jesus, just keeps walking. It feels like with your brother or sister when you're a kid, you give them the silent treatment and act like they're not there and maybe they won't be there. That's almost what Jesus is doing in this moment. And he's just kind of stone-faced. And so the disciples, we don't know what their motivation is, whether they actually care about the woman. My guess is that they were just annoyed. My guess is that there's not heart, there's not compassion there because we see no evidence of that. It appears that the disciples are just annoyed at the woman. And so they go, hey, would you do something? She won't stop. Would you do something? And then this is his response, verse 24. He answered, I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel. You go, what do you do with that? Right? Now, technically, he's correct. He is. This is the understanding of the Bible, is that through the nation of Israel, this is kind of if you go first part of the Bible, the Old Testament before Jesus came, the understanding was that through the nation of Israel, God would bless the entire world. And so when Jesus came, he came to the people who were set aside as God's people, and they would impact the entire world. We still have that understanding today, just to be clear, except it's not through the nation of Israel. It's through anyone who claims to follow God. That through his people that follow him, God will bless and God will impact the entire world. That anyone who claims to be a follower of Christ should be a blessing to the community and to the world around them. And so technically he's correct. He's right. And we see he does do actions to people who are outside the nation of Israel. But how are you going to feel in that moment? Jesus ignores you, and then when his followers finally beckon him to respond, hey, would you do something? Come on, say something. If you're the woman, you're okay, here it is. He's finally going to do something. I wasn't sent here for you. What would you do? She persists. She says this next. It says, the woman came and knelt before him. Lord, help me, she said. Lord, help me. See, this is what's so hard about it. I'll give you Jesus' response in 1 second. Is we see other examples in the Bible where Jesus behaves entirely differently. If we would expect one thing, we would expect the Savior of the world to be consistent, right? Like just a little bit emotionally level-headed, that's what we're looking for. We understand, we get emotional, we have ups and downs, we have good days and bad days. Sometimes we respond in kindness, sometimes we yell at people out our car window when they pull in front of us. Like, we get that, we do those things. We see this other story in the Bible that's really famous. It's called the faith of the centurion. That basically what happens is there's this Roman officer who's in charge of all these people. He's got a servant who's sick. And so what he does is he sends one of his other men to Jesus to say, hey, our servant is sick. His servant is sick. Would you heal him? And Jesus does this. He goes, because of your faith, I will heal him. Go home. And the servant is healed at that moment. Like, that's the interchange that they have. Our servant's sick. Okay, I'll heal him. And we would expect Jesus to respond at least similarly, right? Somewhat consistently along the way. And so this lady does the same thing. She goes, hey, I need help. Ignores her. Hey, I need help. I wasn't sent to you. And then when she responds, she says, please do something. And then this is how he responds to her that last time. Verse 26. It is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. What do you do with that? It's not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. Like, what's he calling her? See, here's the hardest thing with this, is if we would read this in any other book, like let's say this is just a novel. This is just a fiction account of the world of how we do it. What do we do with the character of Jesus? What do we say? Well, he's a jerk, right? He's a jerk, my goodness. Like, he's calloused, he's emotionally stunted, he doesn't care about other people. Like, that's how he's coming across, right? We can't really do that because he's Jesus. So, like, we can't go, oh man, Jesus, dude, you're being a jerk. We can't have that approach because it says, like, God is love. And so he can't be acting this way. Now, let me ask you this. What do you do? If this is you, what do you do in this moment? Or maybe I could ask it differently. What have you done? What have you done when you come to God looking for help, looking for an answer, looking for a solution to something, and you get radio silence? What do you do when you go, hey, God, this happened. This person lost their job. This person got sick. Or I was presented with this information, and I don't know if I can believe anymore. Or God, I've done this week after week after week after week, and I feel nothing. I need you. Show me. Show me you're real. And you get nothing. And it almost feels like God is playing games with our faith. It almost feels like God, that Jesus, wants us to doubt. But why would that be? Why would it be important that he unearths, brings to the surface our doubts? You see, this is what we try to do in faith. It is the struggles, the questions that we have, the things that pop up. We try to we shove them in the closet. We sweep them under the rug. They may pop up here and there when something happens or something gets brought up in a message or you hear something or read something. They may pop up here and there. But most of the time we just go, I just don't want to focus on that. I want to focus on the good things. I want to keep moving forward. And so our goal essentially is to be blind to our doubts. We want to act as if they're not there. But Jesus in this moment, he really he pins it on her. And he just goes, hey, first I'm going to ignore you. Then I'm going to say I wasn't sent to you. And then I'm gonna emphasize that. It's not that he directly calls her a dog, but he almost says, hey, I'm focused on this, not you. Why would he do that? Why would he go through those things? Over the last couple of weeks, we've been having this conversation on faith and doubt. And I want to recap the things that we have covered up until this point, because today we are going to talk about the moment of faith. We're going to take everything we've talked about up until this point in time, and we're going to bring it down to one single moment. And we started this discussion on Easter, and we talked about how the foundation of our faith, what we stand on, is the reality of the resurrection. And that's really important to understand, that our faith, the foundation of our faith, is on what we believe happened after the cross. It's not on the Bible. It's not on the stories of the Bible being true. It's not on church being important. It's not on any one of our spiritual leaders. These are not the foundation of our faith. If you are standing on any one of these things as the foundation, your faith is going to be extremely weak. But the foundation of our faith is what we believe happened after the cross. And then we saw this, that as we actually get into the study, we have two different categories that we need to understand. We don't just have faith, we have belief and faith. That we have two different things. That what happens is that faith is the things that we absolutely know. Belief is the things that we think are true. Belief is the things like, I believe the Bible is true. I believe things happen this way. I believe God is this and this. And that what happens is that faith is the assurance that those things are true. But the problem is that the divide that is between them is filled with uncertainty. The faith and belief are not necessarily the same thing. You have to act on your beliefs in order for them to become faith. And the problem is that in that moment, in that essentially that leap of faith, it's incredibly scary. It's incredibly risky. Because you don't know how things are going to turn out on the other end. You have no idea that God can be trusted with your life until you actually trust Him with your life. You have no idea that God can be trusted with your decisions until you actually trust Him with your decisions. And so we said the way that you get from belief to faith is courage. The courage builds that bridge. And it's scary and it's risky. There is no faith if there has not originally been courage. And this is what I want to do today, is I want to take you to that first moment. And I think this is going to be incredibly important for us. That first moment of moving from belief to faith. Of what does it actually look like to pass over that line of uncertainty and say, hey, I'm actually going to do this. I'm actually going to trust God with this. Because to stand up here and just to say, hey, it takes courage. Man, that sounds great because you're like, yeah, I've got courage. Yeah, courage. That's what we want. But the reality is it's not that easy. And so I want to show you what it actually looks like to move your life from a position of belief to a position of faith. Here's the interesting thing about this story as we look at it, is we don't know all the unwritten details. And I don't mean to go too far on this, but we don't know Jesus' tone of voice. We don't know his nonverbal cues, which speak a ton. They make a huge difference. So we don't know if he came back on this and said, it is not right to feed children's bread to dogs. Or we don't know if he said it kind, joking. We don't know all those things. But we do know this, is that this lady who he's talking to, she responds much differently than we would typically respond. Jesus knows her. He knows where he can press her, and he knows where the conversation needs to go. And so what we may view in the dialogue as unkind and harsh and hurtful, he's actually leading her somewhere. And so he had just said this. He just said to her, it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. And then she comes back with this. Yes, it is, Lord, she said. Even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table. What has happened in this discussion is Jesus just emphasized, hey, I didn't come specifically for you. I came specifically, like the written purpose for why I'm here is for the nation of Israel. And she does this. She goes, yeah, but I still know you care. I love that. I love that. I came, this is the reason why. She goes, yeah, but you still love me. I know you do. I know you still care about me. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here talking to me. And then this is what he does as a response. Verse 28. Then Jesus said to her, woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted. And her daughter was healed at that moment. Woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted. What Jesus does in this moment is he presses her. He presses her on her faith. So often in our lives, when it comes to faith, we will always opt for the easiest answer. Like, hey, what do I do here? Like, I feel like the Bible may say this, the Bible may say this, the Bible may say that. Like, well, which one is easiest? Like, let's go with that one. That's what I'm going to go with. I wanted to do whatever is the simplest. It made me laugh. Years ago, I think it was in the first year of our church, we were doing a series on money. And we were teaching the importance of giving. And so we did this thing that someday we'll do again. We won't tell you which Sunday, okay? But someday, maybe in the future, we'll do again. That we gave everyone $10. We kind of had reverse giving. We said, we want you to experience the joy of giving. So we gave everyone $10. We said, you just have to go give it. You can't spend it on yourself. And someone in our church, they had a conversation with someone who was just starting. They were like, hey, so I heard you were thinking of coming to Crosspoint. What do you think? She goes, yeah, we were thinking of coming to Crosspoint or this other church, but we heard Crosspoint, and dead seriously said, but we heard Crosspoint gave out money, so we think we're going to go there instead of the one that asked you to give money. I thought, well, me too. That's what I would say. But I think that's the essence for so many of us of what our faith is we choose the path of least resistance. We want the easiest answer. But what Jesus does here in this moment is so important, is he doesn't give the lady an easy out. He presses her. In this moment, what he's doing in pressing her is he is unearthing all her doubts, all her insecurities, all her uncertainties, all her struggles. He doesn't allow them to be hid in the closet or brushed under a rug or just lie beneath the surface. But rather he says, hey, you doubt this, and you doubt this, and you doubt this. And he brings them right in front of her. And she pushes back. And she says, yeah, but I believe this as well. And I believe this. That what he does in this incredible, incredible dialogue is he uses her doubts to confirm her faith. He doesn't let her just like sit back and act as if they're not there, but he brings them right to the surface, and then he uses those doubts as an opportunity to confirm her faith. And in that process, we understand something incredible about faith, and that's this. That faith is when our doubts are in full view and we move forward anyway. Faith is when you are consciously aware of every struggle and every uncertainty and every unanswered question that you have, and you still choose to follow God. You still move towards him. When I was a kid, I was taught about the importance of blind faith, that we should have blind faith. And this is what I was taught. This is how I understood it, maybe I could say it like that, is that faith for me is about putting a hand over my eyes, trying to listen to God's voice and follow wherever he leads me. That I literally block everything else out. Everything that could cause me to stumble, everything else that could cause me to struggle, and I just choose to only listen to God. I think that's a great idea, but I don't think that's faith. Faith is this. Faith is when I am completely conscious and aware of every reason I could possibly have in my life not to believe. Faith is when I don't act like they're not there. Faith is not when I'm like purposefully blind to it. No, my eyes are wide open. And I know every reason I could possibly have not to believe. And I'm going to choose to follow God anyway. The blind faith part of it is I don't know where it leads. I don't know how it ends. Like, I know, like, globally, eternity, how it ends, but I don't know how it ends for me. That's why we've said this many times before. The Bible tells us that following God, it's like a lamp. That is a lamp unto our path. The lamp gives you the next step. I would say, God, if you would make it a spotlight, man, my life would be so much easier. Like, they're cheap. Go to Walmart, get one of those huge, like, high beams. Just show me the whole way down the path. It'd be great. No, it's a lamp. Next step. That's all I get, is the next step. But that's what faith is to go, hey, I've got questions here that I don't know the answer to. I've got things that don't make sense here. And in light of all of that, I'm going to choose to follow you anyway. I want to show you another incredible example of this in the Bible. I'll go through this fast. This is in Luke chapter 11. This is Jesus speaking. He says this, suppose you have a friend, and you go to him at midnight and say, friend, lend me 3 loaves of bread. A friend of mine on a journey has come to me, and I have no food to offer him. And suppose the one inside answers, don't bother me. The door is already locked and my children and I are in bed. I can't get up and give you anything. I tell you, even though he will not get up and give you the bread because of friendship, yet because of your shameless audacity, he will surely get up and give you as much as you need. You see that? This is the description of what our faith is supposed to be like. That when we come to God, we don't come to God with going, God, could you really please, it'd be nice if you could just kind of make these things work out in a little way. If you don't want to, I understand, that's fine. You know more than me, you can do other things, that's perfectly fine. But if you would, I would really like it if you would maybe just possibly do this. And Jesus goes, no, that's not how you approach me. You approach me with shameless audacity. Let me ask you this. If you had one word to describe your faith, if you could sum it up, would you describe your faith as polite, as timid, or as audacious? Do you have a polite, kind faith that doesn't want to rub anyone the wrong way, doesn't want to bother anyone, doesn't want to upset the status quo? Do you have a timid faith that you'll like kind of move forward, but instead of actually like taking steps, you just kind of like shuffle your feet a little bit along the way? Or is it audacious? Do you come out and just go, this Lord? See, this is what I found in my life. My prayers have radically changed over the last 5 years of my life. I used to come to God with this. I used to pray, okay, Lord, I think this, but I know I'm not that smart. So just show me. I'll do nothing until then. And I realized that's not audacious. That's timid. These are my prayers now. Hey, God, I think I'm hearing you right. I think I'm sensing this right. I've listened to your word. I've studied this. And here's what we're going to do. Is I'm going to go 100 miles an hour this direction. And if you don't want me in this direction, then you need to make it really, really clear. Because I'm kind of dumb, okay? So if you could just make that really, really obvious to me, that'd be great. And sometimes people come up and say, they're like, well, what are you going to do with this? I have no idea. I don't. How about this moment? Have you thought through this? No, really don't know. But the reality is that following God is not about getting all of our questions answered. If that's what your pursuit in faith has been up until this point in time, I assure you, you will be very sorely disappointed. If that's what your faith has been about, is just like getting every small thing figured out, Christianity is going to be an incredible burden to you. Following Christ will be crushing to your soul because you will never get all of your questions answered. But instead, it's more like this. It's, yeah, I know there's danger here. Yeah, I know there's struggles here. But I'm going to walk this way. And I know this could devour me, and I know this could consume me. But I'm going to go straight forward towards you. And I'm going to trust that you're going to guide me along the way. What if our faith was far less about the things we're not supposed to do and was far more about the things that we are supposed to do? What if in our faith, for many of us, we have bowed out right before the miracle was about to happen? What if in our timidity and our struggle and our nervousness, we have settled for far less than what God has called us to? What if the reason why the world is so wicked and so disastrous today is only a little bit because of the sinfulness of all of us, but it is far more because Christians as a whole have settled for easy and for passive when we were always meant to be audacious? What if in your life, God was pressing you in your faith as a way of unearthing your doubts, to show you the faith, to confirm the faith that was really there? And what if in his pressing, you bowed out when you were always meant to lean in and to push back and to fight for your faith? What if we actually started living out an audacious faith and believed that we could trust God? That's my hope for you. Not that you get all your questions answered, but that you choose to follow in the midst of the uncertainty and struggle anyway. Let me pray for you. Lord, for me personally, I trust in you. And there are times that doesn't make sense. There are times when honestly it feels foolish. There are times for me when I wonder, should I have gone back and gone a different way? But Lord, let my life be this, that I will walk forward towards you no matter what. Lord, for us as a church, for us as a community, fill us with courage to follow you. It's easy to talk about in a service. It's easy to talk about just in a conversation. But at the moment of decision, at the critical points in our lives, when we can either let uncertainty engulf us or courage embolden us, fill us with courage that our beliefs may become faith and that we may know that you can be trusted. And I pray this in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.